Welcome to the Mystic Media channel. I'm your host, Rahbinah, aka the Realest astrologer, and I am honoring a special request from one of my clients. Look like I got lipstick on my teeth. Mercury retrograde. Anyway, he ordered a natal chart reading, and he asked that I do the reading like how I do my astrological case studies. So I said, sure, I'd be really honored to do that for you. Now, I did warn him. I said, this is going to be very in-depth, and also it's going to be some sensitive information that's shared. And I told him that I would keep his name anonymous, but he said, no, go ahead and use my name. So there's a reason why he's okay with me using his name, so I'm going to touch on that in this reading. But here is the natal chart reading for Gary Doris. Now, Gary is one of my clients, and he's also a member of my Real Talk Astrology Group. So some of the other members of my Real Talk Astrology Group, you may be familiar with Gary. He's an active poster in that group, and I really do appreciate his contributions. So let's get started, and let me just share my screen because I created a PowerPoint presentation to go along with this reading. All right, so let me go to the slideshow. Okay, so natal chart reading for Gary Doris. So this is Gary Doris' chart. He was born October 12, 1995, 9:04 p.m., Fountain Valley, California. And Gary had contacted me previously because he wanted me to verify that his birth time was correct, because he just had some questions, and it has a lot to do with his background. So I sent him a list of questions just to see if the answers that he gave me lined up with some of what I see in his chart, namely the position of his moon, also his rising sign and the degree and all of that stuff. So after I analyzed his chart, I sent him a message saying it appears that your birth time is actually correct. So you'll see me pull up this chart quite a bit because I've inserted it in between a bunch of slides so that I could keep on going back and referencing it. So here's his chart. As you can see, Gary, you have most of your activity, most of your planetary activity is in the Western Hemisphere, and that actually deals with your North Node in Libra. So in this lifetime, you are supposed to be very relationship oriented. And when you see this Western Hemisphere emphasis like this, a lot of times it means that in this lifetime, you will be living out a lot of your karma. So instead of sowing karmic seeds, you're actually reaping karmic seeds from past lives. So a lot of what occurs in your life will be largely fated, and that explains your background, your early upbringing. So I'm just going to go through a couple of slides, a few slides dealing with some analytical aspects of your natal chart. So I created this little pie chart just detailing your elements and how they line up in terms of strength. So in terms of fire, your fire is very weak. So you only have one planet in fire. So let me just go back to that. So you have Jupiter in Sagittarius. So that is the only planet you have that's in fire. So your fire element is rather weak. And fire gives you that sense of individuality. It gives you a strong sense of self. And it causes you to be rather independent, self-sufficient. It causes you to have passion and to be able to motivate yourself. So without a lot of fire in your chart, you may not be motivated to pursue a lot of your ambitions. So it may take some people to come into your life that have some fire in your life, to put some fire under your butt. Now, I got quite a bit of fire in my chart. So as a Sag, I could definitely help you in that area. Going back, Earth is weak. So going back to the Earth. So in terms of Earth, you only have Uranus and Neptune. in Capricorn. So that's the only planet you have in earth signs. So that's rather weak as well, especially because these are outer planets. So they're really not dealing with your personality. It will in terms of the aspects that they form, but that Uranus and Neptune is really not helping you out in the earth department. So you're really deficient in earth as well. And earth gives you a sense of practicality, a sense of realism, and it allows you to be stable. So without earth, you can be quite up in the air, rather flighty. Your air is very strong. So basically I'm reiterating what I said about you being rather flighty, a lot of times up in the air. You may have some great ideas, but it may be hard for you to actually pin something down and to solidify your plans. And then water is moderate. So let me just go back to your chart. So in terms of air, you got your Sun, Mercury, Chiron, North Node in Libra. And then you got your Moon in Gemini, your Gemini rising. And then for the water, you got Venus, Mars, and Pluto in Scorpio. And you got Saturn in Pisces. Also with the air, your midheaven is in Aquarius. So you have a ton of air in your chart. Water is rather moderately strong because you got Mars and Venus in Scorpio. So you are very sensitive. You're very emotional. You're also very intellectual. You love to learn. You love to relate to people, or you have a need to relate to people. And like I said, all that air, all that Libra in particular, is basically reinforcing that North Node in Libra. So I just created a different little table right here. So this is just detailing fire. Again, you got Jupiter. I forgot to mention the South Node, but that really doesn't count. And then you got air. You got Mercury, Chiron, Sun, North Node ascendant, Earth, Neptune, and Uranus, water, Venus, Mars, Saturn, and Pluto. And these are the weighted scores. These are the this weighted score comes from my astrology software, Solar Fire Gold, one of the best software astrology software packages, in my opinion. And here are your modalities. So cardinal, that is the Sun, Mercury, Uranus, Neptune, Chiron, North Node, and South Node. So that would be your Libra energy as well as your Capricorn energy. And then the fixed signs, you have Venus, Mars, Pluto in the midheavens. So that would be your Scorpio energy and your Aquarius energy. And then mutable, you have the Moon, Jupiter, Saturn, and your ascendant. And that would be that Gemini energy along with Pisces and Sagittarius. And then for the houses, for the house modality, you only have Jupiter and Saturn in angular houses, and that would be house 7 for Jupiter, house 10 for Saturn. Succeeding houses, you have Sun, Mercury, Uranus, Neptune, Chiron, North Node, and South Node. So those are the most populated. And then cadent, you have the Moon, Venus, Mars, and Pluto. So you're most empowered by having planets in angular houses. Those houses are very dynamic. So the fact that you only have Jupiter and Saturn in angular houses, that contributes to your lack of ambition or your lack of motivation to really make some strides in your life. And that explains your spotty work history. But you're still young, so you got plenty of time to make up for that. And then here are your tightest aspects. So the tightest one by far is your Sun quincunx Saturn aspect. And this could possibly manifest as issues with self-image. And your advice is to acquire a mentor, find your passion, and turn it into a career. And also you got Uranus square North Node. So that could point to karmic separations, also being stuck in the friend zone, and playing both sides. More about that in a minute. And your advice is to be more strategic. Every action needs purposeful intent. So you should always operate in terms of that mindset. So every action needs purposeful intent. That's really important in your case since you don't have much fire or earth in your chart. And then the North Node is in sesqui square to your ascendant. That can deal with commitment issues. I forgot to add this part right here, but I'll get into more detail about that when I get deep into the chart. And also Uranus is in sesqui square with your ascendant. That could point to short attention span. All right, so let's get into your ascendant. So your ascendant is at the 11th degree of Gemini, and that 11th degree of Gemini is about conflict, both external and internal. So conflict, especially dealing with home, family, mother, relationship, but also the 11th degree can bring forth enlightenment. So it's not all bad. And a lot of times with the 11th degree, there's some issue with a third party coming into the mix and threatening your sense of security. And that could deal with your early upbringing. And also, there is often an issue regarding love triangles with that 11th degree. Now, as a Gemini rising, you are very versatile, flexible, and multifaceted. You need mental stimulation in order to thrive. And communication is your life force. You're both student and teacher. You're also an avid reader. You are eager to learn, and you are a connoisseur of knowledge. You are inquisitive, opinionated, loquacious, that means talkative, nosy, and you could be a busybody. You have quick response time. You could be agile, light-footed, and have a fast gait. And also, Gemini rising tends to produce a restless bundle of nerves. You could have a problem with being high-strung, and there's a tendency to lack a filter in terms of your communication. Also, you could be contrary for no reason. So where, you're starting arguments for no reason. And also there's a tendency to question everything. So just think about how you question your birth time. There's nothing wrong with that, but I'm just bringing that up about Gemini rising. So Gemini rising is very inquisitive, and you have a need to know everything. And you like to keep up to date with current events and all that good stuff. Also, you have a tendency to be fickle, flighty, short attention span, easily distracted, and hyperactive. You could be commitment challenged, ambivalent, and too cerebral. So where you lack emotional depth, but what helps you is your Venus and Mars in Scorpio. Also, your Mars conjoined to Pluto in Scorpio. So you do have some emotional depth to you. So with Gemini rising, you could be operating from two perspectives, have a dual purpose, a second agenda. You could be half angel, half devil, two-faced, wicked, at times crafty. Gemini can produce immorality at times, or a person that is prone to unethical behavior or unethical decision-making at times, because Gemini can rationalize basically anything. And Gemini produces a twinning effect. So as a Gemini rising, you might have this twinning effect going on where people that they might share the same birth date, or they might share similar things in their charts. So you might have, you might be in a relationship with two different people, and then one person has their moon in Aquarius, the other person has their moon in Aquarius. Both of them might be Sagittarius rising, whatever like that. You might also have people that have the same names, like be in a relationship where, two people with the same name. Also, doubling up is very much Gemini rising. So usually you need more than one, because Gemini deals with twos or more. One is usually never enough, and that can deal with your relationships. Also, as a Gemini rising, you're the reporter, the heckler, the commentator, the jokester, and also the gossip. So gossip can get out of hand, so you got to check yourself on that. And also with Gemini, you are about look, listen, and observe. That's very much Gemini rising. Also, you're very animated, mobile, and you tend to use a lot of body language. And you may be prone to quirks, tics, and you may have this thing where you wink a lot. Also, Gemini rising tends to produce this physical appearance in terms of facial features, where I like to call it like tight eyes. So Gemini produces kind of like, very small eyes that are piercing though. Well, not so much piercing. What's the word? Sharp eyes. And Gemini very much needs the eyes, because again, it's all about look, listen, and observe. And also pursed lips. So a lot of Gemini risings might have like a small mouth, lips are like kind of pursed. And I noticed that you have that look. You also got you got those tight eyes too. So you got that characteristic Gemini rising look. You got Gemini rising can produce keen features, a small build that's compact though, or you could be lanky. Also, as a Gemini rising, there could be issues with siblings, relatives, childhood friends, schoolmates. Also, you are prone to bike accidents, car accidents, basically anything where you're out on the street, you are at risk for some crazy stuff going down. And you did mention that you got hit by a car when you were younger. So there's some aspects that point to that as well. So I'm going to get into that. And then Gemini rising, you're prone to injuries and disorders of the shoulders, arms, and hands. And you are prone to seasonal allergies. They may be worse in certain environments. And you may be prone to be allergic to pet dander. You could have respiratory issues. You could be prone to disorders and illness of the lungs, i.e. pneumonia, bronchitis. You might have had bronchitis at least once. It's very easy for you to get respiratory infections. So here's your chart again. And again, your ascendant is at the 11th degree of Gemini. And that 11th degree, it will not just produce conflict, but it will produce this mirroring effect. So Gemini will produce a twinning effect. And then also the 11th degree of Gemini can produce this mirroring effect that's kind of like Cancer, because the 11th degree is very much like the moon Cancer energy. And then look, you got your moon resting right on your ascendant. Basically, it's only 48 minutes away. So that's one of your tightest aspects. So that's very significant in your life. And it speaks volumes about your early upbringing. So here are your aspects. So you got moon conjoined to your ascendant. So this is one of the strongest aspects of your natal. Points to circumstances surrounding your birth, involving your mother, and perhaps pertaining to her mental state. It points to being handed over to others. This aspect is akin to a weak and unstable foundation that has affected your outlook on life. It produces hypersensitivity to external factors. Housing is a major theme. Also, you could do this thing where you emulate others. And also, again, like I said, with the mirroring. So you may mirror others or people may mirror you. And also, you know, it could be that thing again with the twinning, the duplication. So that's very strong with you. And also with your moon resting on your ascendant, you are an open book. And I noticed that you are very candid in the Real Talk Astrology Group. And that could also deal with you spilling mad tea, being a big time gossip, being a storyteller, big time gossip, especially because your moon is in the 12th house. Now, about that moon in the 12th house, conjoined to the ascendant, that's one of the aspects that points to what you told me about how you had a dream about your mother. You said that you dreamt that your mother disappeared. And this happened before she actually disappeared. So just a little background on Gary's situation. Gary didn't grow up with either of his parents. He grew up in foster care. And I have a special place in my heart for people that have grown up in foster care, because I used to work in the foster care system. I used to also work in the homeless system as well, a homeless shelter system. So with my sun conjoined to Neptune, I just have a very special place in my heart for people who have gone through serious struggles, especially children. So just knowing that and seeing the factors in your chart that points to that moon in the 12th house in Gemini, that's basically you having that dream about your mother before she actually disappeared. So that's very tragic. And the moon in the 12th house can deal with sorrowful circumstances involving your mother. Now you have sun trine ascendant. That's a very positive aspect that can deal with ease and making friends. It's good for networking, negotiations, sales. It's easy to form relationships with men. Many benefits through men. Very relatable. The ability to have two lovers at the same time. It's good for self-promotion and a high-profile career. You also have Jupiter opposing your ascendant, and Jupiter is in your 7th house. And this is one of the aspects that pertains to your time in foster care. So relationships tend to be very short-lived with Jupiter opposing your Gemini ascendant. And you also are very open. Sometimes you could be a little too open. And your words can easily set some people against you. So you may be constantly feeling judged, constantly seeking justice, especially because Jupiter is in Sagittarius. And this can deal with attracting different races, ethnicities, and nationalities. Much casual interactions with no true meaning or purpose. So that's one of the issues with this aspect. And also it can cause you to lack discretion when it comes to partnering up with others. And also you need to travel. So travel is big with you. And you did mention that you would like a job where you could travel. So that's a strong possibility with this aspect. And also this deals with you have sycophantic tendencies at times, and this could deal with a need to learn from others. So sycophantic tendencies means that you have a tendency to copy other people's style or their demeanor, or maybe even their accent or their slang or the way they dress, the way they move, what have you. So again, this deals with a strong need to be accepted and loved. And growth occurs via relationships because Jupiter is the planet of growth. Now you have Uranus in sextile square to your ascendant, and this deals with lacking discernment with respect to your choice of friends. Also, setting yourself up to be rejected. It can point to inflammatory speech, also being bullied, feeling or being ostracized, not being sure where you fit in, also allowing certain groups of people to get you riled up unnecessarily. And then you have the North Node in sesame square to your ascendant. This could cause you to be too reactionary. This could deal with flooding someone, perhaps a lover, with messages, like you could just go too far. You don't know when to quit. Relationships are short term again, so that reinforces that Jupiter opposition ascendant aspect. So they can end quickly. And this can also deal with poorly thought out actions. Now, Mercury rules your ascendant, and it's also your chart ruler, because whatever planet rules your ascendant also rules your entire chart. So Mercury is in Libra, and it's in the 5th house. And your chart shape is a locomotive, and Mercury is the lead planet. So Mercury is very strong in your chart. Like, you're very mercurial. So that can be good, but it can also be bad. So the 5th degree carries the same energy as Mercury. So again, that compounds the whole mercurial energy that you're working with. So that again, it reinforces that air as well. Now, your primary focus is directed towards relating to others. You need people like you need air. So much air can cause you to be too up in the air with no real sense of purpose. Indecisiveness is a problem. You have a strong need to be liked and validated by others. You have a strong need for constant feedback and reciprocation. You are very relatable, sociable, and diplomatic in your approach. And you are too concerned with how others view you. So that's one of your flaws. You are very much a proponent of justice, fairness, and equality. Also, you won't hesitate to check someone, but you do it with class. And you are charming, cordial, engaging, and thoughtful. You have a need for public exposure and recognition. So this is one of the, this placement of Mercury is one of the reasons why you said, go ahead and use my name. I'm perfectly fine with that. I'm fine with my information being out there. So I'm like, hey, if you're cool with it, I'm cool with it. So your Mercury being in the 5th house points to that. So Mercury in Libra can make you prone to laziness, especially mental laziness at times. And it can make you prone to be a diva, a prima donna. And you have a delicate equilibrium, which means that you can easily get bent out of shape. Also, you have great appreciation for the arts, music, and also celebrities. So you might be very much into celebrity news stories, celebrity gossip. You may love taking surveys and questionnaires because you need to, like that Libra influence loves like surveys and questionnaires because you need to always bounce ideas and you need to always fact check with people and get feedback. So that's very important with Libra feedback. And as Mercury in Libra, you are the mediator, arbitrator, negotiator, counselor, intermediary. So as a mediator, you might be the mediator when it comes to your friends. And you have to ask yourself with Mercury in Libra, are your thoughts always your own? Because that could be a problem. You're not thinking for yourself. Now, Mercury in the fifth house. Mercury can be tricky when it is occupying the fifth house. For one, it brings a need for constant mental stimulation. You are quite restless and you are easily bored. One of the ways in which you distinguish yourself is through your communication style. You are very opinionated and you don't hesitate to speak your mind. Your ego could act as a hindrance to the entertaining of new perspectives. Romantic unions are often very short-lived, especially if your lover doesn't always keep things fresh and new. You could easily lose interest. Mercury, when in the fifth house, can produce a string of flings. A fifth house Mercury brings a need for a variety of sexual experiences. You may be very flirtatious, but not in an overtly sexual way. Your manner of flirting is more playful and subtly seductive. And again, here's your chart again. Like I said, you'll be seeing your chart pop up a lot because I inserted it in between a lot of slides. So again, I'm doing this because I just want you to get a nice picture of what I'm talking about. But you've seen your chart before, but this is also for, the viewers. So your Mercury is in Libra and it's stationary. So basically, when it's stationary like that, that is like concentration of that Mercury energy. So again, that whole Mercury energy in your chart is compounded. It's very strong, even with that Mercury being stationary. It's like you're very much about justice and fairness, almost too much in that respect, where that can cause you to easily get bent out of shape, all of that. All right, so here's the Mercury aspects. So Mercury is conjoined to Chiron. And the key word for that aspect is exception. So there may be times where you expect to be the exception to the rule, or there may be times where an exception is granted in your favor, or you could look at that as exemptions, what have you. So you want to be the exception to the rule at times. And also Mercury conjunct Chiron can deal with mental wounds, painful childhood experiences, including in school. It can point to words that hurt, hate speech, and vitriol. So that could come from other people, but it could come from yourself as well. So you may be spewing a lot of vitriol as well, but it could be directed at you. So it can point to abuse at the hands of a sibling, relative, neighbor, or some other close associate. Mercury conjoined to Chiron can deal with a learning disability, or where you just learn in a unique way or in an unconventional way. And Mercury conjoined to Chiron can point to where you needed supplemental instruction during your early schooling. Mercury conjoined to Chiron can produce an extremely skewed mindset, and it can make you quite uncompromising, and it could cause you to do things that are shocking and controversial just to get a rise out of people or just for attention because your Mercury's in the fifth house. Now, Mercury conjoined to Chiron is basically mental corruption versus inventiveness. So the choice is basically yours. So you can allow your mind to become corrupt, or you could use that Chiron influence to become inventive and create something that you can give to the world. Also, it can produce healing hands. So this aspect is good for massage therapy. So you might want to consider that. Also, it makes you prone to sustaining injuries to the arms. So this explains the scars on your arms. And also injuries to the hands as well. It can produce bad nerves. And it explains the scar on your eyebrow because this conjunction is in Libra. And Libra is very much related to the eyebrows because of a little symmetry, the balance, all that. And I always say that Mercury is very much related to the eyes. Now, your Mercury is conjoined to Sappho. That's the gay aspect. And if anybody is a member of Real Talk Astrology, you've seen Gary's posts or comments. Gary makes no bones about being gay. He's very open. So Gary is one of those gay males that, well, let me talk to you directly. You're one of those gay males that you're fine with being gay. You don't have any hang-ups, or at least it appears that way in your chart about being gay. And there's other aspects that reinforce that. And your Mercury is conjoined to the asteroid Proserpina, and that deals with your foster care placement because Proserpina can deal with being taken out of the home or being taken away from your parents. Now, your sun. So your sun is at the 19th degree of Libra. The sun rules the fourth house. So this means that a lot of the energy that your sun produces is directed inwardly. It's subjective. So that could be a problem because, again, that can cause you to not really put forth an effort when it comes to making something out of yourself in life. So the 19th degree deals with the themes of father, men, sex, children, leadership, and excellence. The 19th degree is very fortunate. Now, Libra is the sign of relationships, so your sun being in Libra, your identity is formed through your relationships with others. Libra is also about balance, hence its symbol, the scales. Throughout your life, you will be attempting to balance the opposing sides. So it could be external in terms of the opposing sides, but it could be internal within yourself. Libra brings a need for social interaction. If you are the homebody type of Libra, you may be very active online. You may enjoy participating in social media groups and taking online surveys. As a Libra, you have a need to bounce ideas and opinions off of others since you are about well-informed decisions. While you are not inclined towards emotional sensitivity, you are very thoughtful and considerate when it comes to others. As a Libra, you are not one to take sides in an argument or dispute, and this can piss some of your friends off or your lovers. Part of your purpose as a Libra is to promote peace, harmony, and equality. You are diplomatic and cooperative. You often play the role of the peacemaker, and at times you could be a bit of a pushover, especially when it comes to your loved ones. Indecisiveness is one of your shortcomings. This tendency towards indecisiveness stems from a need to carefully consider the pros and cons of a certain course of action. Libra deliberates before Libra acts. Another one of Libra's shortcomings is being too concerned with what others have or how other people live their lives. Libra has a tendency towards keeping up with the Joneses mindset. In the very least, you have a need to keep up with the times. You are not really fond of that which is old-fashioned or played out. What people think and say about you matters a lot. A Libra sun often endows you with artistic talent. This talent could be singing, dancing, writing, cosmetology, or playing an instrument. The sun in Libra endows you with charm, grace, and refinement. Libra displays class, finesse, and sophistication. You are very persuasive, and you know how to appeal to a person's good graces. One of Libra's strengths is the ability to put the shoe on the other foot. Another strength is Libra's ability to sway the public. Libra is, in fact, the sign of public relationships. Libra is also a natural counselor due to its dispassionate and engaging nature. At times, you may come across as a diva, and you may always try to delegate the drudgery or menial tasks to others. So this can also explain your spotty work history. Libra can have a lazy streak. The Libra sun produces an inclination towards vanity and superficiality. You may be a bit too choosy, and it is easy to quickly lose interest in someone or something once the initial allure fades. So the sun is in your fifth house. So a fifth house sun points to a high degree of creative energy. You have a need to express yourself in an uninhibited way. If your self-expression is stifled in any way, it will be hard to be happy. With the sun occupying the fifth house, there is a need to distinguish yourself from the crowd as much as possible. You are very demonstrative of your feelings when you are in love. You are very affectionate, giving, and sincere. The problem with the fifth house sun is that it can cause you to be naive at times. It can also cause you to be quite the exhibitionist, even when it is not warranted. The fifth house is the house of the performer, so you have the tendency to stir up drama just to keep yourself entertained. The sun, when occupying the fifth house, brings the theme of children to the forefront. The fifth house pertains to children, and the sun does as well. This compounded energy pertaining to children is indicative of significant challenges that could be present. Until you find your purpose, you are apt to try different hats on for size in terms of your professional life. This placement of the sun is beckoning you to get in touch with the spirit of your childhood that still dwells within you. By getting reacquainted with your childhood spirit, you will discover your purpose. Basically, you need to try to recall what you wanted to be when you grew up and take it from there. So here's your chart again. So as you can see, your sun is in the fifth house, chilling with North Node, Mercury, and Chiron. So I'm going to get into the aspects of your sun. So you have Sun, quincunx Saturn. As I said, that is the tightest aspect in your chart. So this aspect is very significant. It points to issues with authority stemming from your relationship with your father or lack thereof. Father was not a stable or positive presence in the home. Sun rules the fourth house, so that reinforces the issues with your father because the fourth house pertains to the father. Attempts to create relationships with men to make up for a lack of a father's love and guidance. But these men may often reflect the negative traits of your father. Attention-seeking behaviors due to neglect, abandonment, attracting men who try to keep you in submission or who only want you as a sex toy. Instances of public humiliation when you express yourself. Narcissistic tendencies, lacking maturity, employment issues. Now you have Sun square Neptune, and this is a really challenging aspect for anybody to deal with. So this aspect points to neglect, abandonment at the hands of father who is addicted to drugs or alcohol. It can point to you lacking a strong sense of self, lacking masculinity, or where you have issues with your manhood. It could point to escapism, especially through sex, since the sun is in the fifth house, Neptune's in the eighth. Also, it can point to allowing yourself to be used or exploited. Lacking willpower is a problem with this aspect, and this aspect can also cause you to be prone to self-deception, addictive tendencies, especially sex, again, because of the fifth and the eighth house influence. It can bring instances of humiliation. It can point to you ingratiating yourself, self-denigration. And also, this is a homosexual aspect. Not saying that everybody that has this aspect is going to be gay, but it is one of the aspects that contributes to your homosexuality. So the sun in Libra, square Neptune and Capricorn, that basically is like no desire for the opposite sex. Children may be denied in this lifetime, and it makes a lot of sense, you being a gay male. And sun square Neptune also points to institutionalization. So that can point to your time in the foster care system, but it can also be another form of institutionalization, including jail time. So you got to be careful about what you do. You basically have very quick karma with this aspect. And this aspect can also bring about paranormal activity. I think you did mention something about that in the early part of your life where there was some spirit or some ghost or something that was haunting you. And as a sun square Neptune person, you could be haunted yourself. Like there could be a spirit attached to you. That's just the way it is. Also, being homeless is a big threat with sun square Neptune, especially because the sun is ruling your fourth house that deals with home, or being dependent upon others for housing. The sun rules the fourth house, like I said. So sun square Neptune is one of your more challenging aspects. I really wouldn't wish that on any of my friends. Enemies, yeah. Now your sun is in parallel to Pluto, and this deals with the ability to become prominent within your field once you find your purpose. And also it deals with the ability to wield power and influence over others. It could cause you to be very resourceful and resilient. It could cause you to be a survivor, and it can bring the ability to get money from men. And this aspect can point to your ability to have a lot of sex. Also, you got sun conjoined to the North Node, and this aspect reinforces the need to be relationship oriented. It's facilitating the formation of new relationships, and it points to you being in need of much social activity, needing much feedback and reciprocation, being placed in foster care, group home. Basically, sun rules the fourth, like I said. Libra influence is outside legal intervention. So here's one thing about the fourth house. If the fourth house is somehow connected with Libra, which yours is because your sun rules the fourth and your sun is in Libra, that's a telltale sign that there was some type of intervention that went on in the early part of your life. Could have been CPS, could have been some type of like legal intervention. So know that that is one of the key configurations that points to your being in foster care. Also, you have sun. Oh, wait a minute. Let me go back. Just to let you know, this was a necessary part of your spiritual evolution because the North Node is involved. And this points to a need to learn how to get along with others. So I did mention that, with your sun in Libra, you're cooperative, you're very thoughtful, all that. But some of these aspects take away from the cooperative, diplomatic nature of Libra. So like your sun parallel Pluto, that could cause you to be kind of manipulative. You got sun square Neptune, that could take away from your diplomatic nature. So sun trine midheaven could point to joining forces with others will help you to achieve your ambitions, since the midheaven is in Aquarius. Even being a member of my Real Talk Astrology Facebook group pertains to this aspect, since Aquarius rules astrology. Joining professional organizations would be very beneficial once you discover your purpose. Perhaps your purpose has something to do with metaphysics due to this aspect, again, because your midheaven is in Aquarius. This can also point to government benefits, working within a government agency, especially one that pertains to social services. It's great for event planning, online businesses, and a business partnership because the sun is in Libra. Also, a business that serves the LGBTQ community would be ideal because of the Aquarius midheaven. And also, this deals with you being out and proud. So like I said, this is one of the aspects that reinforces the fact that you're not ashamed to be a gay male. You probably never really hid that about yourself. So you are out and you are proud. So the sun deals with pride, and the midheaven in Aquarius can deal with your homosexuality. So here's the aspects, some more. These are dealing with asteroids and 2 Arabic parts. So your sun runs contraparallel to the asteroid Amor, and Amor is at 5 degrees Leo. There's that 5 again, Mercury. So this deals with no love from the father, or attention even, difficulty in finding true love, attracting lovers who are similar to your father. So they might be repeating the same tragic circumstances, the same hurt, abandonment, all that stuff. Sun conjunct part of fortune. This is very advantageous for you, and you are definitely not putting it to use right now. So just know that you got aspects in your chart that are latent that need to be activated at some point, and this is one of them. So this can deal with the ability to get money from men, but maybe you have gotten money from men, so I don't know about that. You may get money from a legal settlement, and this is good for real estate investments, and this is good for careers that deal with counseling, or where you act as some type of intermediary, some type of agent. It would be good for public relations, anything that deals with Libra-related professions. So that could even be working within the law field, and so forth. And the sun is opposed to the part of land journeys, and this aspect deals with your placement in foster care, but it can also deal with some travel that took place at some point in your life. And a lot of times when you see this, it means that there was some type of tragic circumstances regarding this land journey. Now your moon. Your moon is at the 11th degree of Gemini, just like your ascendant. And the moon rules the 2nd and the 3rd house, which means that your emotions and your primary needs are directed towards money, and also your self-esteem, your values, and also communication, and being able to relate to others, being able to exchange ideas, all that good stuff. So that's very much reinforcing Gemini, because the moon rules that 3rd house. 3rd house is very akin to Gemini energy. So the 11th degree, again, reinforces themes of the moon. So it points to mother, family, home, a number of conflict, external and internal, and it can produce love triangles. So your early home life, where change was a constant, is very common with the moon in Gemini. And the moon in Gemini can produce several changes of residence. Also, your mother was not that sensitive, so she wasn't the sensitive, nurturing type, more than likely. And your mother has the ability to wield a great deal of influence over your mind, whether for good or for bad. Now, in your particular case, since your mother is no longer in your life, she could still wield influence over your mind, just off of those traumatic experiences that you were faced involving her. Now, the Gemini moon could cause you to be intellectual, witty, and have a lighthearted personality. You are not emotionally needy, which is a good thing. But then again, that stellium you have in Scorpio kind of counteracts that Gemini moon. So you don't have a need for closeness on a day-to-day basis. What you need is conversation. Intellectual discourse is one of your chief needs. You need confidants, and you need people with whom you can exchange ideas. Now, let me just start right now because I did tell you via email, Gary, that this video is more than likely going to be in more than one part because it's going to take very long for it to upload to YouTube, especially with my Wi-Fi. So I'm thinking this might have to be done in 3 parts. So, and plus I might get burnt out like trying to do this whole thing in one shot. So I'm going to try to get up to Mars. I'm going to try to get through all your personal planets. And then in part 2, I'll deal with Jupiter on out, and then the rest of what I want to talk about with your chart. So you have a lot of nervous energy, so you are always in need of an outlet. You have a need to keep moving. Moon in Gemini produces a fidgety and fickle disposition. You are in constant need of mental stimulation. And the fact that the moon rules the 3rd house, that reinforces that actually compounds that situation. And you may have some quirks and idiosyncrasies as a result of high-strung nerves. So you might like tap your foot a lot, or you might have an issue with biting your nails, or you might always be doing something with your hands. See, I got Mars in Gemini ruling my 3rd house. I'm always doing something with my hands. I can't stay still. So I could definitely relate. So you may also you are at times contrary and argumentative for no reason. So somebody might be like, the sky is blue, and you be like, well, it's not exactly blue. It's actually this cornflower color or whatever like that. So when somebody says something, you want to counteract with a counterpoint. But some people may not always be up to that type of discourse. So this is due to an unconscious need to keep the verbal exchange going. So you're also prone to engage in much mental vacillation. So your mind might never be at peace, especially since the moon rules the 3rd house, your 3rd house. Now, your moon is in your 12th house, as I said before. So since the moon is in the 12th house, a lot of your karmic debt will be paid through women, including your mother. She may also have issues with addiction, and she may have lacked coping skills. A 12th house moon will prompt you to escape to other lands due to a need for new scenery and as a way to keep from becoming stagnant. This is also a form of self-preservation since it is easy to lose interest in your existing connections. Moon in the 12th house makes you very impressionable, but since the moon is in Gemini, you are prone to question everything, which helps to combat this tendency towards impressionability. Moon in the 12th house makes you very sensitive to the spirit realm. This position of the moon grants you spiritual protection. An ancestor may double as your guardian angel or spirit guide. That's very common with a 12th house moon. And you may be able to communicate through your dreams, or maybe even through awakened vision because your moon's in Gemini. So you have some strong psychic ability with you. So again, here's your chart again. So here's your moon in Gemini, just to give you a pictorial representation. So as you can see, your moon is the only thing in that 12th house. So your 12th house is very empty. So you got quite a few empty houses. Your 12th house is empty. So is your 1st, your 2nd, your 3rd, and your 4th. And then your 9th. And your 11th is not empty because the South Node is there, but you just can't see it because it doesn't show up on my software. Moon aspects. So you have moon trine Mercury. That's really good. That makes you relatable. It's great for sales. It gives you a really good memory and a great recall of facts. It's good for creative writing or blogging, also storytelling. It's good for being a trainer or instructor, good with pets. Also, moon opposition Jupiter, being distant from family. That points to your time in foster care or group home. It can point to going overboard with talking, arguing, issues with moving beyond the past, issues with getting close to others, will unconsciously choose partners who are not willing to settle down. It can point to sycophantic tendencies, like I said, with your Jupiter opposition ascendant. Basically, you may find yourself living in your car at some point. So remember I talked about there's a threat of homelessness because you got Sun square Neptune. Well, this can point to the threat of homelessness as well because the moon is in the 12th house. And also with the moon ruling the third house, there's a chance you might find yourself living in your car at some point. But it could only be like a night or two, but that could actually happen. So you always got to be very careful about if you decide to live with somebody, you got to make sure you could trust them, that they're not going to kick you to the curb in the middle of the night. You don't have no place to go. Also, this opposition can deal with extravagance and wantonness. And your moon is in sextile square to Uranus. This can point to the unstable early home life that you had. Also, where you grew up with a lot of uncertainty, upheaval, separation from your mother, family, extreme emotional upsets that may shock even you at times. So when you get really upset, you might even be shocked at how, heated you get and how you tend to spaz out. Also, this could deal with social discord, irrational responses, flying off the handle, easily getting bent out of shape. It can bring tumultuous friendships, lacking self-restraint, unpredictable. It can deal with a mood disorder. So I don't know, you might have been diagnosed with bipolar disorder or whatever, but this can cause you to have very unstable emotions, disordered mood, unstable living situation. So even in your adult life, this might play out. And fragile self-esteem because the moon rules the second house. So what people say about you, you may really take to heart. Uranus is in the 8th house, so that is dealing with other people. The moon is conjoined to the Arabic part of danger or peril, and that is you getting hit by that car. So know that this aspect can always play out even in your adult life, so you always need to be careful. If it happens again, you may not get hit by a car, but you may actually get into a car accident. So you got to be very careful with this aspect. This can also put you at risk it exacerbates the risk of injuries to the arms and hands. Moon trine Chiron. This is a very nice aspect. This can point to the ability to obtain housing at a reduced price or to buy a home with a very low down payment, living for rent-free at times. It can point to helping foster children, at-risk youth, basically you giving back because you know how it feels to be in that position. So that's where children can come in with respect to that North Node in the 5th house. That stellium you got in the 5th house. Also, this can produce healing hands because the moon's in Gemini and Chiron is the healer. And basically you have like what could be considered the Midas touch. So you could put your special touch on things and make it even better. So this could also point to you retaining the services of a female spiritual advisor like yours truly. And it could point to you having like sort of like a fairy godmother, an angel. And it also points to your ability to exercise mind over matter. So this is a very magical aspect that you may be letting go to waste to a large degree. So know that this is very good. It gives you some strong psychic ability, gives you some paranormal abilities, or I'll say supernatural abilities, where you can divine things through your dreams or through going into a trance-like state. Also, moon sesame square North Node. Early home life was not conducive to your spiritual evolution, being placed in foster care. So you're going to see a lot of aspects in your chart that point to foster care, but it's going to deal with other situations as well. So being placed in foster care was part of your karmic debt because of the North Node's influence. This also could deal with subconsciously creating conflict in order to avoid commitment. Also, it could deal with your shifty personality, makes it difficult to maintain harmonious relationships. Forgive me, Mercury's retrograde. I had a terrible situation happen to me, and Gary knows about it because he's in my Real Talk Astrology Group. Basically, I was supposed to do my Ace of Cups radio show. I spoke for like 2.5 hours and found out that my headset wasn't plugged all the way into my phone. So nobody could hear me. And I was wondering why people were dropping off the line. I even said that during the recording. So only 13 minutes of the show ended up being recorded. This is so Mercury retrograde. Mercury's in my 3rd house. I digress, but I just have to say, so if I'm stumbling over my words or you see some typos in this, blame it to Mercury retrograde. Charge it to the Mercury retrograde game. All right, let me continue. So this aspect can also deal with, you can't let things go, and this creates a major problem for a partner. And this aspect is indicative of separation anxiety and abandonment issues, which could make your relationships difficult. And when you suspect that a partner is not loyal, your evil side, and remember, we're talking about Gemini, so you part angel, part devil. So your evil side comes out, making the situation worse. Now, your Venus is at the 3rd degree of Scorpio, and Venus rules the 5th house via intersected Libra, and the 12th house via Taurus. So your approach to relationships is very much about sex, and also about merging with others. And also you could look to, it could point to, with the 12th house in particular, that you look to relationships to provide some form of refuge, or you could look to them as to provide some form of escape. It can also point to unrealistic expectations in relationships, or when you just get in a relationship where it's just unrealistic, it's not practical. It can also point to impractical decision making, money issues as well, because Taurus is on that 12th house cusp. That could point to being being at the mercy of others who have more money than you. So that could deal with a living situation and whatnot. It could even deal with a partner who makes more money than you, and he uses that to his advantage. Now, Venus at the 3rd degree, that deals with you being very sensual. It can deal with a lot of sex partners, because the 3rd degree deals with excess. It points to issues with monogamy, but it's good for money. But that can get out of control. Now, Scorpio is not conducive to a stable and secure relationship. This is because Scorpio is a dynamic and often emotionally tumultuous sign. Venus in Scorpio also breeds hatred, envy, jealousy, and manipulation. Venus, when in Scorpio, brings an inclination towards codependency. It could cause you to remain in an unhealthy relationship due to the financial and or emotional support it provides. Your relationships will be all-consuming, and if your values are not aligned with your partner's, your life will be changed against your will while in the relationship. And that can cause resentment. Venus in Scorpio is not conducive to a long-term monogamous commitment. Infidelity is highly probable due to Scorpio's need to explore the myriad of sensations. Often for Venus in Scorpio, one partner is not enough. There may be some kind of void that exists within you that cannot be filled by anyone, let alone one partner. And this is especially true since your Venus is at the 3rd degree. It's either all or nothing with Venus in Scorpio. You either love someone wholeheartedly or you totally dismiss them as if they do not even exist. There is really no in-between with Scorpio. Breaking up is akin to a slice of death when Venus is in Scorpio. Just as with the physical death of a loved one, a breakup is followed by a period of mourning, then grieving. It may take years to reach the closure stage, if at all. It is during times of breakup when you are the most vulnerable and can be the most destructive, including self-destructive. So you have a tendency to be vengeful, vindictive, prone to holding grudges. The tendency towards possessiveness needs to be kept in check, as well as the temptation to manipulate others for your own benefit. Great for attracting sources of unearned income, though. This money can be gained through a marriage or divorce, especially, but also through an inheritance, lawsuit, insurance settlement, disability income. There will be times when you get things for free just on the strength of who you know. It also makes it easy to gain money through loans, lines of credit, and prizes through raffles, sweepstakes, and gambling, but gamble responsibly. Don't take this for granted, but your Venus at the 3rd degree does make you quite lucky when it comes to winning prizes and stuff. So let me just go back to that. I would advise you, you know how they got sweepstakes, like you might be in a checkout line and it's like sign up, you could get this free cruise, or sign up, you could get this free car, or you could win this car, or you could win $10,000. Always sign up for sweepstakes and raffles and all that stuff. That's anybody that got Venus in Scorpio, but especially at the 3rd degree, because you could clean up that way. Trust me. Now, with Venus in Scorpio, you're very tactile. Sex is one of your main ways of relating to others. You need to experience bodily sensation to the fullest extent. Vanilla types of sex may not cut it for you, since you need to be brought to the outer limits of ecstasy. You may be into a little S&M, BSDM, or is it BDSM? I always forget. Such as choking and being spanked. You may require a little pain and lots of pounding and pressure to get off. You want to be brought to the edge of destruction, basically. Real talk. Partners can be controlling and or abusive, jealous, vindictive, stalkers, manipulative, Swengali types. You know, if you don't know what a Swengali type is, just think about P. Diddy. P. Diddy is the epitome of a Swengali, and he's a Scorpio. So basically what he does is he takes these budding artists, he takes them under his wing. He's like, I'm going to make you a star. He molds them into what he wants them to be, his ideal image, like he's God. And he will exploit them. And when he's done exploiting them, he just casts them to the side like they ain't nothing. Ask Danny Kane about that. Ask what was that guy's? Oh man, why can't I think of his name? I can't think of his name. Shine, that rapper Shine. Ask Luna about that. Ask who else? Mary J. Blige got burned by P. Diddy. So that's just to give you an example. So you can easily attract partners who try to mold you into what they want you to be. And then when they're done exploiting you, then they just drop you like a bad habit. Now, as a teen and or young adult, you may be rather promiscuous, but this is due to Scorpio's need to experiment with different sexual partners as a way to discover the most intimate aspects of the self. Sex for Scorpio is also used to create the closest of bonds and to become familiar with orgasmic sensations. So orgasm is very important. Sex could also be used to fill a void, but emotional voids can never be permanently filled through others. The void always returns. So that can cause you to rack up a large number of sex partners because you're trying to fill this void that can't be filled. Now your Venus is in the 6th house, and Venus does not feel very welcome when in the 6th house. There are a few problems with this placement of Venus. First, there is a tendency to attract partners who are broken in some way. They look to you to help them become whole. Venus, when in the 6th house, also points to relationships that breed stress and insecurity. One of the main challenges will be achieving consistency. Another challenge pertains to attempts to become fully integrated into the life of a partner. As a result, you often become one of their subjects. A 6th house Venus is conducive to working in environments that involve face-to-face interaction with the public. For instance, this placement of Venus is good for public relations, event planning, or where you work as some kind of liaison. This placement of Venus is also good for counseling and consulting. Jobs that require you to negotiate or where you broker deals between parties are ideal for a 6th house Venus. And in terms of health, I was going to touch on the different areas of your life separately, but that might be dragging things out just way too far. But in terms of health, a 6th house Venus can point to some issue with your lower back. It can point to an issue with the kidneys. It can point to an issue with your diet. So especially with Venus and Scorpio, you may not have the best of diet. So you may be lacking in terms of some nutrition, mineral, vitamins. So it may be necessary for you to take some dietary supplements. Oh, and Venus in the 6th can also produce, especially in Scorpio, issues with the pelvis and just that whole area, that pelvis area. And then depending on the type of food that you eat, it may not agree with your digestive system. So, certain foods may give you the runs, like you could be lactose intolerant or something like that. You could get bad gas by eating certain foods. And again, here's your chart. So Venus is in the 6th house. It's right on the 6th house cusp, which reinforces the issues with your relationships. I also forgot to mention that this could deal with you attracting a partner who wants to support you and help you in a tremendous way. But this help may come at a high price. They may expect full compliance, or they may expect you to be fully under their control. All right. Here's your aspects involving Venus. Now, Venus is in sesqui square to Saturn. This could deal with money problems due to issues with maintaining employment. Also, it could point to choosing mates who will exploit you, then desert you. So like I said, that's Swengali type of situation. Also, partners who try to make you over to their liking. Again, the Swengali thing. Trust issues, abandonment issues, regenerating the issues with father through your relationships with men. Resorting to subterfuge, treachery, can be devious plotting, at risk of being a victim of fraud or theft, And this can reinforce what I said about you having quick karma. And your Venus is conjoined to the North Node. This reinforces the need to be more relationship oriented, albeit Venus is in Scorpio, so that would be a dissociative conjunction. And this basically deals with Venus being in Scorpio, it takes away from that Libra North Node's ability to be in relationships where there's balance, fairness, and harmony. So this could deal with you being in a relationship or where there's some hidden agenda, there's some ulterior motive, either coming from you or coming from a partner. Also, this could point to creating enemies when you express yourself. Also, it could point to being obsessed with justice, fairness, being controversial, and it could point to intervention. Now, your Venus is opposed to Lilith, and this is one of your gay aspects, and it points to you being sexually liberated. But this can also point to you attracting partners who have issues with their own sexuality, because Lilith is in the 12th house. You might attract some men that are straight, but, well, no, that claim they're straight to their wives or whatever, but they go see you on the side or whatever like that. So this could deal with attracting down low men. And then you have Venus in contraparallel to Nemesis. This can deal with partners who turn into your enemies. So you got to be very discriminating when it comes to choosing a partner. Now, that word discriminating, a lot of times it gets a negative connotation. And really, discrimination is necessary a lot of times, because without discrimination, we're just going to accept anything. Now we're at Mars. So actually, I got through this kind of quick, but I think I will stop once I get past Mars, and then hopefully it'll just be part 2, and then that'll be it. Now, Mars is at the 24th degree of Scorpio. Mars rules the 6th house and the 11th house. So the 6th house can pertain to health. So a lot of your energy, your mode of operation is directed towards health. That could be voluntary or involuntary, but it can also be work or your craft or some type of training, but it can also point to you needing help. Mars in Scorpio can produce parasitic tendencies, or where you're very dependent upon others if you're not one of those self-determined Mars and Scorpio people. Now, the 24th degree can pertain to relationships, love, money, and creativity. It reinforces your Libra North Node. Now, that 24th degree is very advantageous. It's very beneficial. So this can deal with you gaining benefits through men in particular. This deals with strength and stamina. It can point to a desire to form bonds with others, a drive to create synergy by collaborating with others. Also, it points to being in search of meaningful and transformative experiences. And you either give your all or nothing at all. You also possess a desire to probe deep for answers to some of life's mysteries. You are a natural detective in this respect. You are also drawn to psychology and the occult. You are built for crisis situations and high-pressure jobs. Your persona is all-consuming, and you have a desire to experience life in its totality. There is a tendency to be overbearing, manipulative, and controlling at times. You are also prone to obsessive-compulsive behavior. Envy, jealousy, and vindictiveness are other dark manifestations of Mars in Scorpio. There's also a tendency towards ruthlessness when it comes to something you really want and somebody standing in your way. Mars in Scorpio produces a very strong libido. Sex is very integral to your sense of self and emotional well-being. Without good sex, you may sense a void in your life. Mars in Scorpio can cause you to be hypersexual. I dated a guy with Mars in Scorpio, and he sure enough was. I mean, he was ridiculous with it, with some of the stuff he was like, let me just stop. Anyway, Mars in Scorpio can cause you to be lusty, and it could cause you to be in search of the ultimate in terms of ecstasy, orgasm, you name it, and basically you nasty. Like Mars and Scorpio people, y'all just nasty. All right. So if this energy is not used constructively, it will become destructive. Self-destruction is a possible manifestation, as well as self-loathing at times. And Mars in Scorpio can cause you to want to engage in taboo activity. It can produce a temptation to do wrong for no apparent reason. Just temptation just creeps up on you. vindictiveness. I mentioned that in the previous slide, but I'm saying it again, I guess, because I'm really trying to drive that point home, because that's real strong with Mars and Scorpio. And also, sometimes you could come across as too intense, and your mode of operation is one of intensity, and it could be too much for some people, and you're prone to binging. So you might binge on food, you might binge on sex, binge on drugs and alcohol, what have you. But one thing about people with strong Scorpio energy, they can binge on drugs and alcohol and sex and stuff, and then get to a point where they get sick of it and then quit cold turkey. Now, Mars and Scorpio will produce seething anger, brooding, resentment, holding grudges, dismissal of people who do not agree with you. And also the thing with Mars and Scorpio, since Mars pertains to anger, you have a tendency to just suppress your anger, suppress it and suppress it and suppress it until it gets to a point where it just explodes, and then it becomes very destructive or self-destructive. You attract men who are endowed with a dose of Scorpio energy, whether that is their sun, moon, ascendant, moon, I mentioned the moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars. And they might display traits of Scorpio or Plutonian traits. And this can point to men who support you, but this support may come at a high price. So same thing like I said about Venus and Scorpio in the 6th house. And this deals with the kinky, very sexual types that you mentioned, and also the men that are into the occult. So you did say you attract men that are kinky, very sexual, and also the ones that are into the occult. So that deals with your Mars in Scorpio. Now Mars is in the 6th house. Now you detest having to correct errors and redo work. However, because you have a tendency to work at a fast pace, you may often have a lot of errors to correct. Being in a constant state of correction is what Mars in the 6th house is all about. I have a 6th house Mars, like you do, so I'm constantly correcting things, constantly. And my Mars is retrograde, which makes things even worse. So when it comes to proofreading and editing or sending out emails, like I always have to read it. I'm so bad with my Mars retrograde, I'll send an email and then I'll go to my sent folder and read it. I do that a lot. Like, I'm just so like neurotic like that. Ugh, I hate that about myself. Anyway, so so I write a lot. So I'm constantly editing. I'm constantly, having to go back and redo work and all that stuff, redo errors and all that stuff, because I tend to work very fast. I speak fast. I speak faster than, my mind, that's what it is. My mind goes faster than my speech. So that's why sometimes I stumble over my words and things like that. Mars in the 6th house can produce that situation where you can stutter or stumble over your words or whatever, especially if Mars is in contact with your Mercury or is somehow influencing your 3rd house or whatever like that. I definitely have that problem. Now, Mars in the 6th house produces raw nerves, and that's part of the problem. It's always easy for things as well as people to get on your nerves. You are hypersensitive in that respect as well. You don't handle stress well. One of the best ways to manage stress is to read, write, or work out when you got a 6th house Mars. You catch on to new systems and techniques quickly. Mars in the 6th house makes for a great trainer and instructor, and it's good for the healthcare field. So it's good for working within the field of healthcare. And Mars in the 6th house can produce workplace conflicts. And it can even result in sexual harassment situations, especially because your Mars is in Scorpio. And also and sex on the job. So I don't know if you ever had sex on the job, but no comment on that about my situation. Anyway, moving along. So better yet, become an entrepreneur, because when you got Mars in the 6th house, it's rather hard to work for people. You really don't like being in positions of submission. So becoming an entrepreneur is your best bet after you've gained some training and after you've gained some work experience, like in the employment sector and all that type of stuff. So here's your chart again. So here's your Mars. It's in your 6th house and it's conjoined to Pluto. So now I'm going to get into your aspects. This is one of your more intense aspects. Why? Because of that Pluto influence, and they're both in Scorpio. So I'm going to have quite a bit to say about this. And this part of your natal chart reading is actually, this is kind of like the sensitive part that when I was writing my notes about this, I was like, oh my God, but you know me, I keep it real. So I'm about to really keep it real with you. You said you don't mind. me putting your personal business out here. So I'm about to spill your tea for real, and it's hot. All right, let's go. All right, so you got Mars trine Saturn, which is a very good aspect. I love this aspect, matter of fact. It's great for entrepreneurship. It can produce benefits through older men. So if you've been dating men that are your age, it's actually better to date men that are older than you, because a lot of benefits can be gained, and that will lead to more stability in most cases. And that speaks a lot about your sun square Neptune, because if you get with somebody that's born in the same year as you, or even a year later, sometimes even 2 years later, there's Neptune could square your sun, and that's doubling up on aspects. And that's what I was talking about tonight or last night during my Ace of Cups radio show that never got recorded because of my headset wasn't plugged in all the way, the whole Mercury retrograde mishap thing. But I was speaking about that. I might have to redo that show over because it was real good. But I was speaking about doubling up on aspects, or basically aspects that echo your natal aspect. Synastry aspects that echo your natal aspects are not really a good thing. Especially, let me back up. See what I'm saying, Mercury retrograde. What I'm trying to say is, say like you have Sun square Neptune. Well, you do have Sun square Neptune. You get with somebody who is born in the same year as you, so their Neptune is squaring your Sun. Well, that's doubling up on a challenging aspect. And so you're like compounding the challenges that you're already faced with. And there's a good chance that the aspect in the synastry is going to be even tighter than the aspect of your natal, because basically that hard lesson needs to be driven home. So I just wanted to get that out there. Back to Mars trine Saturn. So this is good for attracting mentors. It could deal with the ability to benefit from government entitlement programs, ease in getting jobs, especially in the field of healthcare and human services. It's good for charitable projects. And you did mention that you volunteered at a hospital before. Also fundraising events. So you would be good at putting on fundraiser events. Also crowdfunding. It can provide free access to healthcare. So you might be in a position to get some free healthcare or free health insurance. This aspect also pertains to your dental assistant schooling. So Gary had enrolled in school to be a dental assistant. So I don't know if you ever completed that, but that does fit your Mars trine Saturn aspect. So you might want to consider pursuing that as a career, even if it's just a temporary basis for you to make some money, for you to become established, for you to improve your status. Now you got Mars sextile Uranus. This is a really good aspect. This deals with benefits through friends and group affiliations. It can deal with you obtaining government entitlement benefits, freebies, support in the pursuit of your goals, working within an organization that caters to the needs of the LGBTQ community, the use of metaphysics, including astrology as a psychoanalytical tool, ease in getting random sex, success in online business and blogging, being comfortable with being gay. So that this is one of the aspects that points to you being out. Also, your Mars is conjoined to Urania, which is an asteroid that's good for astrology, and it can also point to you acquiring specialized knowledge. And because Mars is in the 6th house, that can point to you being like an apprentice, or you going through some like hands-on training or very intensive training. Your Mars is in sextile to Neptune. This is good for working within the healthcare field or being a drug and alcohol counselor, sex therapist. Gives you a strong sixth sense due to Neptune's influence. And in that respect, you would be good as a tarot reader, and you would be really good at casting spells and good at visualization. So I'm calling this aspect visualize and realize. It will also produce prophetic dreams, creating fantasy experiences. That could be part of a business that you run. It's good for massage therapy, acupuncture, acupressure, reflexology. So those are possible career options for you. It's good for social work, working within nonprofit organizations or creating your own nonprofit organization. It's good for working within charities. This aspect pertains to the time you volunteer within a hospital, because Neptune deals with hospitals. It also deals with you being on video. It deals with this video natal chart reading, actually. And this video natal chart reading it just may help others in addition to helping yourself. And that is the essence of Mars and Scorpio in the 6th house, not just helping yourself, helping others at the same time. So having that mutually symbiotic, mutually beneficial, synergistic, symbiotic connection, relationship, what have you. And what I'm visualizing with this aspect, the potential is you being part of a film or some other artistic project. Also, this is another aspect pertaining to your dental assistant schooling, since Neptune is in Capricorn, and Capricorn deals with the teeth. And then Mars is conjoined to Pluto. Now, this is one of your most challenging aspects. This deals with parasitic tendencies. It can produce very strong compulsions where, you know, you may not even want to do something, but that Pluto is really like prompting you to do something that you really don't want to do. It can make you hypersexual, very vengeful, destructive, even self-destructive. It can cause you to be a cutter. Scorpio is the sign of the cutter, and when in the 6th house, that's dealing with mental health and all that stuff. So this could deal with you getting scars. Scorpio deals with scars as well as a result of cutting. This could also deal with you got some tattoos as well. This conjunction would actually make great for a good tattoo artist. And then with Mars sextile Neptune in the mix, that could be great for tattoo artists as well, because Neptune is in Capricorn, and Capricorn deals with the skin. And it's in the 8th house, which deals with that which goes under the skin or under the surface of things. So tattoo artists, that's another possible career path for you. And back to Mars conjoined to Pluto. So it can produce dark, morbid, it can basically make you a dark, morbid character at times, or give you dark, morbid characteristics, I should say. Also, it could cause you to give into a sense of futility, and that can explain why you really haven't really pursued your ambitions in full force yet, but you're still young, you got time. Also, let me see, anal sex. Mars conjoined to Pluto is one of the telltale aspects that could point to you being into anal sex. It points to being at risk of contracting STDs. The use of enemas. So you may use enemas, and trust me, I've read it all. I've seen it, not seen it all, because nowadays they got some new shit coming out of the woodwork. But I am no stranger to the gay lifestyle, including, you know, with males. So I know how males get down. Even with heterosexual anal sex, especially in porn and stuff like that, they'll have people flush out their rectum with enema, so that when you engage in anal sex, you don't get shit all over your dick and all that stuff. Yes, I'm being graphic, but you know me, I'm gonna keep it real. So that Mars conjoined to Pluto can point to, especially because it's in the 6th house, it can point to you giving yourself enemas before you have sex. Now, I would say that is a necessary evil, giving yourself enemas, unless you just like that type of sex that could end up being kind of shitty. But the problem with giving yourself regular enemas is that it can flush out the good flora that's in your intestinal tract, and that can lead to a high susceptibility to infections. Now, I had a gay friend. He was actually a client too, and he would flush out his ass with an enema before he got sexually active. And I used to warn him about that. And I was like, you know, you can't be doing that like too much on a regular basis, because that's going to leave you open to getting all types of, it's going to make you more prone to get sexually transmitted diseases, but also other infections and just having things go wrong. Like that can even perhaps promote colon cancer. So I don't feel like enough is being said, like, because if you do a Google search on the internet about anal sex, and I'm not trying to be on my soapbox or anything like that, but it does come with some serious risks, because the rectum is not really conducive to a lot of hard pounding. It's really an exit, or it's for exiting, it's for elimination. So by people engaging in anal sex, you're going against the rectal grain. So you know that if you do it too much, you can end up causing permanent damage to your rectum, to your anus. There's been gay men who've been very promiscuous over many years who end up losing their sphincter muscle, and they have to end up having a colostomy bag attached to them in order for them to defecate. So I'm just saying, that's what I meant about this reading was going to be sensitive, but you said you don't mind. So, hey, and this is good for anybody that is engaging in engaging in anal sex, whether you're gay or straight, it doesn't matter. Anal sex comes with serious risks. It increases your risk of STDs and also other problems. So I'm just telling you, Gary, just to be very careful. Always use protection, none of that barebacking stuff. And if you can really help it, keep the anal sex activity to, I would say, try not to do it where it's like every time you're becoming, but I'm not going to tell you I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm just telling you what the potential is. And with that Mars conjoined to Pluto in your 6th house, you are at serious risk for health problems that are sexually related, but also just to get infections as well, like just regular infections. Because anybody with Scorpio energy in the 6th house, but it can even be in the 1st house, they're just naturally prone to getting infections. And also your body can produce a high degree of toxicity. So you might want to do one of those system cleanses like at least once a year or whatever like that. Also, I mentioned the colon health. So this aspect can also point to hemorrhoids, anal fissures, anal prolapse. So enough about the anal part. Another serious thing, because this conjunction is in the 6th house especially, it can produce suicidal, homicidal tendencies. Because like I said, this conjunction in the 6th house, it's also pertaining to mental health. So the times where you're feeling like extra emotional, where you're just dealing with a bunch of turbulent emotions, that's when you shouldn't just keep to yourself. You need to reach out to a friend. Reach out to me if you don't have nobody to reach out to. My problem is I may not respond like for a few hours if I'm working on something, but usually I'm always at my computer and I have Outlook, so I'll see when an email comes up. So if you needed me like in an emergency situation, number one, you need to contact, like if you ever feel suicidal, you do need to contact the suicidal hotline. But I'm saying if you're just feeling like you're on edge and you don't have nobody else to turn to, and I tell all of my clients that, send me an email. My thing is sometimes I may not get back to you in a day or something because I'm really busy and I get tons of emails. But my thing is, once you're my client, I want to retain you for life. Like, I'm invested in your well-being. And I'm like that with all my clients, unless you're just a problem client, then I'm like, you can just go somewhere. You can go to somebody else. But rarely do I get problem clients. So I'm blessed in that respect. So again, I'm extending this offer out to you, Gary, that if you ever get in a situation where you're just feeling really down in the dumps, because Mars and Scorpio can cause you to get like that, especially conjoined to Pluto, especially when you're starting to feel self-destructive, hit me up, message me on Facebook or send me an email and we could talk about it or whatever like that. And maybe I can, provide some insight and some emotional support for you. Now, this conjunction can also deal with possible surgery that you may need at some point. And it can point to working within the occult or working with the occult. So you would be a beast when it comes to spells, namely black magic, but I'm not trying to influence you in that direction, but you got that with you. I ain't even gonna lie. Like, you got some shit with you with respect to like spells and black magic if you really wanted to go that route. But I advise you not to, because like I said, you have quick karma. So you don't want to do something and then, something happens to you because you messed around and did something wrong to the wrong person that really didn't deserve it. Because sometimes Scorpio could go overboard with the revenge. And with your Mars and Scorpio conjoined to Pluto, you do have the tendency to go overboard with being vengeful. Now, your Mars is in square to the midheaven, and this could deal with issues with authority, problems with maintaining employment, too ego-oriented to work successfully with others, acting the fool, lustful nature, dictates future and social activities, circumstances involving mother's disappearance, being abused by authority figures. So that might have happened in the early part of your life where somebody was in a position of authority over you and they took advantage of that. So that brings me to Jupiter. So I'm going to end this right now. So this is the ending of part 1. So I hope you found this very insightful and enlightening. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a break. I'm going to de-stress, get some coffee, and hopefully I'll be right back on it. So while I'm getting my coffee and stuff, what I'm going to do is I'm going to convert this video to the MP3 file, and then I'm going to upload it to YouTube. That should take a while or whatever. Now, if anybody likes this style of reading, it is very open and public, but if you don't mind your personal information out there like that, I wouldn't mind doing this for other clients. So if you are interested, just purchase a video natal chart reading from my website, and I could do one of these videos for you as well. But like I said, it's going to be very candid, very in-depth, and some sensitive information is going to be out there. But I can also leave your name anonymous as well. So just let me know. If you like a reading, go to my website at rahbinah.com. Peace and many blessings. I'll be back, Gary, with part 2 of your video natal chart reading.